The last year of college is scary. Well, the last month more so than the rest of the year. You're at this point in your life where you're expected to have everything together and be ready to be an adult, but really, who's ever ready as they walk in their cap and gown and end their undergraduate career? Crystal was terrified. It was her last couple of weeks of classes before commencement. She was a psychology major, and finding a job within the field of psychology without a graduate degree was near impossible. She was taking a year off school after graduation and was going to use that year to work within the field and apply for graduate school. That way, she wouldn't mess up her GPA by trying to do so much at once. Grad school applications are quite the process. So, was trying to find a job. There's not much you can do in psychology with at least a master's degree, but with the help of her advisor, she was on a quest to find a job. She'd been applying to all places that she could find: psychiatric hospitals, prisons, therapy offices, general hospitals with psych wards, everywhere. But even with calling and hounding the places, she was never even getting an interview. Or if she did get an interview, it would go amazing, and she'd still not get the job. It was disheartening, and was ruining her confidence every time that she saw those emails that said sorry, but no. She wanted to look for a job on Craigslist, but her boyfriend kept insisting that she not do that. Too many crazy people on there, he would say. But one day, while he was in class, Crystal looked on Craigslist. She didn't really expect to find anything, maybe a small therapy office reception job or something like that. She just thought that she'd look just in case, cover all her bases, you know? She didn't have long to look before her boyfriend came back from classes, but she found a single listing within the field. It was for an internship at a children's therapy center in the town that she lived in when she wasn't in school. She replied to the ad with an email, sending them her CV and resume, and telling them how excited she was to hear back from them. Her boyfriend came back right after she pressed send. The next day she got a call from the therapy center saying that they would love to talk to her some more and scheduled an interview. Her boyfriend was thrilled for her, but he didn't know where she'd found the job. He worked as a nighttime janitor at the center, coincidentally. The day of the interview came, and she put on her professional clothes and went. Before the interview, her boyfriend sat with her for a while. They waited for her boyfriend's boss in his office. He was acting weird, though. He was quiet. He wouldn't talk to Crystal, he just sat next to her. The silence made her head hurt. Her palms sweat. He was never this quiet. His boss came into the office. They went through the typical interview questions. Her boyfriend just sat next to her. She wasn't sure why his boss didn't tell him to go, to do his job. His boss would scoot closer to her when he asked her questions. He'd grab her hand. He was just overly physical and affectionate. It made her uncomfortable. Nervous. Dried out her mouth. She asked if she could get some water, and her boyfriend left to get a cup. When he came back, she took a sip of the water and felt herself growing tired. Maybe the interview was just too much stress for her to handle at the end of the semester, and she was becoming exhausted. Her eyes became too heavy to hold up. Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss, her boyfriend said. Crystal succumbed to darkness. He placed his lips on hers. Her eyelids drooped closed, and she passed out. When she woke up, she was tied to the desk. Her boyfriend and her boss were standing over her with solemn expressions on their faces. Her ears were ringing, so she couldn't understand what the boss was asking for. But she saw his lips moving. Her boyfriend handed him a knife. They never noticed that she was awake, just stood over her, side by side. They pushed her shirt up to reveal her stomach. The boss pressed the knife into her smooth flesh and slit her open. They noticed she was still awake then. When she gasped in pain, her boyfriend injected her with some yellow-shaded liquid, and again, She succumbed to the darkness. Crystal woke up again sometime later. Her stomach was still open. The skin was stretched, the hole bigger, blood covering her clothes. There were jars on the bookshelf of the desk holding things that looked like human organs. Her organs? Her boyfriend came into her line of vision. He put his hand inside of her. She could feel him squeeze at her, moving her organs around. The pain was overwhelming, but she tried to stay awake, just long enough to plot a way out of there. Her boyfriend pulled something out of her. It was small, red. It scraped out a lot of her guts that were in her stomach. She passed out once again. The next time that she woke up, after less time, she'd been awoken by a drowning sensation, water being poured over her face. She gasped and sucked in the air that was finally back. Her boyfriend and the boss didn't say a word. They just watched her as they yanked her head forward by the hair and began shaving it off. Once all of her hair was on the floor, she felt a knife cut into her scalp. It felt like they were drawing something on her shaved head. She begged them to stop. Their expressions never altered. They never looked at her, never acknowledged her. She was only the victim. She told her boyfriend that she loved him. As a last resort. He looked at her. He slammed the book against her head. Again she awoke. This time, she woke up to see them snapping the neck of a poor woman. She must have come in to talk to her boss. She fell to the floor in a pile of forgotten flesh. They walked over to Crystal again. They took off her clothes without care of the pain that they surely knew they were causing her. She could feel how low on blood she was. She could feel herself growing weaker and weaker with every new awakening. She was never getting out. She knew that. Her life was over and done with. She felt them simultaneously slit her wrists horizontally. She winced as quietly as she could. They kept cutting her again and again and again and again. The boss looked at her. The days are bright and filled with pain, he said softly. The darkness came back. When she awoke once more, it was all dark. Had she really woken up? It was cold. Maybe the boss, her boyfriend, had left. Her hopes were raised to the sky. Her life wasn't over. But when she tried to move, she found that she couldn't. She felt like something was on top of her. She could feel cold skin, but she couldn't hear any breathing. It had to be the girl that she'd watched die earlier. She tried to move, and she felt the dead girl's head fall beside her. Their ears touched. Crystal tried to move. She could only move her arms a few inches, her legs a little. She tried to raise her head up. It was met with a hard surface. She realized she wasn't going anywhere. She realized she was in a box. She tried to get out. She tried to scream for help. But it was no use. Hours went by. Not a sound was ever heard. She was trapped inside a box. A coffin. Never to be seen again.